right, Sally, you can go ahead and start. Good morning. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Thank you for joining us for the November IGSHPA Town Hall. We have John Freitag with the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois speaking today. We're excited for his presentation. And we have a sponsorship this morning, the IGSHPA Advocacy Committee. If you haven't heard of the Advocacy Committee, it's a group of state and provincial associations that are working together for consistent messaging, and so they wanted to sponsor this town hall today, and we're thrilled to have their support. I have just a few slides to go over before I turn it over to John with the latest IGSHPA news, and then we'll be ready for our presentation. This is our last town hall for 2023. I can't believe how this year has gone so quickly. We thank everyone for participating in our town halls and our Dig Deeper webinars. We are accepting abstracts for 2024, and we are also accepting advertising for the town hall and the Dig Deeper sponsorships here. So if you're interested in speaking, you can submit an abstract. Just contact info@igshpa.org, and the same with advertising, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. To the conference coming up in less than a month now. If you haven't registered yet, you did miss the early bird pricing that ended last Friday, but that pricing is still available through December 1st if you work with one of our exhibitors. So if you go to the IGSHPA website, you'll find under the conference menu, you'll find our exhibitors, and when you click on that, it'll look something like this up in the upper right-hand corner. All of our exhibitors have special codes, and if you work with them, they'll be able to provide this pricing through December 1st. So you haven't completely missed out, and it's also a great opportunity to connect with one of our exhibitors. That's a great way to still get that discount. We are very thankful for our sponsors this year. We certainly could not do the conference without our sponsors. We filled every single space that was shown. In fact, we were a little bit early this year, so we were ahead of schedule getting every single sponsor, and we even had some additional sponsors for lanyards and for breakfast. So we thank our sponsors and look forward to seeing everyone here in less than a month. I mentioned the exhibitors earlier. There is one space left, even though it shows two in white here. One of them just got taken today. We are going to print with our program guide today, so it's not too late if you'd like to exhibit. If you can get that in today, you'll be in the program guide. If you're not able to do that today, it's not a problem. It won't show you in the program guide, but there is still that other space left. So it's a good problem to have when you're that full. The agenda is online at igshpa.org. We have a lot going on with 49 workshops this year. We, of course, have our annual general meeting where we'll announce the results of our board of directors meeting, or excuse me, board of directors election, and just a lot going on there. Our keynote speaker is Alejandro Moreno, who's Associate Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy at the DOE. So he's our keynote, and that'll be on Wednesday. The research conference is coming up next year in May. That is wrapping up with submissions. Authors have been notified, and papers are due, I guess, tomorrow. So more details, again, on igshpa.org for the research conference coming up next year. If you haven't seen it, the Geo Outlook magazine is back. We had our first digital edition in September. Our next edition will be January, and then July. We're starting out with 2 issues per year and hopefully going to quarterly issues in 2025. If you'd like to write an article for Geo Outlook or advertise in Geo Outlook, contact info@igshpa.org, and we'd love to work with you on that. We've had some really good results so far, and we are partnering with BNP Media on this, who does the engineered systems and HVACR news and quite a few others. So the mailing list is large, tens of thousands. If you're thinking about advertising, it's really great exposure with this new digital edition. For CEUs, you can get points from this town hall. All you have to do is simply in the chat, enter your name and email address, and we'll keep track of that for you. You can even watch this later on and still get CEUs. So if you're watching this recording, Just please submit this code right here, TH2311TGV. You don't need it if you're watching this live, but if you're watching this recording, submit that code to info@IGSHPA.org, and you'll still get CEUs from watching the recording. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. If you would, enter your questions in the chat. When John is finished up, I will read the questions, and John will have a chance to respond to those. And so I think we'll have a lot of good discussion on that. If you would, please mute your microphone. Actually, that's not true with our new format here. It's already muted, so I don't have to say that. We will be recording this session, and in the next couple of days, you'll find it on the IGSHPA website, and you'll be able to watch the recording if you missed anything today. Just a quick disclaimer, and I'll introduce John. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenter and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. IGSHPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It is a presenter's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. So with that, I'd like to introduce John, and I thank our sponsor, the IGSHPA Advocacy Committee. John, feel free to share your screen whenever you like. John Freitag is the Executive Director of the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois, the statewide trade association for the geothermal heat pump industry in Illinois. He was instrumental in the start of GAOI in 2008 and has grown the organization since then. He's a longtime electric utility professional and retired from the Association of Illinois Electric Cooperatives in 2017 after more than 32 years with the organization. Freitag is an advocate of energy efficiency with the emphasis on geothermal heat pumps and solar PV. He has both technologies at his own home in Springfield, Illinois. He has more than 30 years of experience with geothermal heat pump technology and has had a system in his home for nearly 25 years and installed his first solar array at his home in 2015. He serves on the board of directors of the Lincoln Academy of Illinois and has recently been appointed by Governor J.B. Pritzker to the Illinois Energy Workforce Advisory Council. We're thrilled to have John, and I'll turn it over to you. Thanks so much, John, for presenting today.
Thank you, Jeff. And I'm going to assume that you can see my slides, right?
Yes, they look great. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks for having me. Hopefully we have an interesting and good turnout today. And I'm going to share a little bit of information about a different type of program than most of you are familiar with, and that's a geothermal heat pump group buy program, and what our history has been over the last almost 3 years now. So a little bit of information first about the Geothermal Alliance of Illinois before we get started. I won't read all of these slides. You can read them, but just kind of hit the highlights. So we've existed since 2008. I guess that's about 15 years now. You can see how many members we have. We have an annual conference in March. We're pretty consistent. We're usually in the 150 to 175 attendees range the last few years. We're a little bit different than most of our contemporary statewide associations in that we do training and credentialing as well, and we have our own service and installation credential certification, if you would, and our own driller certification. And to date, we've had about 450 technicians and companies in Illinois that have been through our program. We typically do about 2 or 3 of our trainings and credentials testings a year. We work very closely with both of the big investor-owned utilities in Illinois. I have about as good a relationship as one could have with ComEd, our big utility in the state, and they have very solid geothermal incentive programs, and we can't imagine our relationship being any better. We're pretty collaborative, and we meet once a month, and we just are going to have a residential Ameren program starting the first of the year, so that's exciting. They've had a commercial program, and they're starting a residential program And I've been working with them on that for about the last 6 months. So I think that's planning. The plan is to start that the first of the year. So hopefully we develop the same relationship with Ameren that we have with ComEd. And then in addition, we have some great relationships with several electric co-ops in the state. And then lastly, we do a monthly online series called Getting the Dirt on Geothermal. So I think everybody's here to learn a little bit more about the group buy program. So I'm going to share some information about that. We'll try to be done by 11:30. I will say before we get too far into this, I'm getting over a sinus infection. You probably hear I'm a little stuffed up. Hopefully I don't get off on a coughing spasm here. I'll do my best, try not to do that. And hopefully we can get through this. So the group buy programs. So it was back in March of 2020. I got invited by a fellow named Scott Tess, who I'd never met, to come over to a meeting of the Urbana City Council and the Sustainability Commission on March 3rd, evening of March 3rd, 2020. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And they asked me to give them some ideas on how they could better support and encourage geothermal heat pump technology in the city of Urbana. So I gave them a bunch of ideas in a presentation, and they thanked me and were collegial and nice. And evidently they didn't like most of my ideas, but Scott had an idea that night that he threw at me, and I thought it was a crazy idea that would never work, but I thought it's too good an idea to not at least explore it. And his idea was to take the model that they'd used with solar and convert it to geothermal, and that's to do a geothermal group buy. And my reaction was, well, that really won't work with geothermal. It's different technology. But again, it's too good an idea, so let's explore it. And so we kept finding roadblocks and then figuring out ways to knock down the roadblocks. And before you know it, we had the basis of a geothermal group buy program. These are a couple pictures Scott gave me. The next two slides, just some information about their solar program. I believe that Urbana is just now wrapping up their 6th year with solar Urbana-Champaign, and they've had a fair amount of success, very good success with that solar group buy over the years, except it's getting to the point now where it's an adult type program. And I think that their results are not as vibrant as they were in the earlier years of the program, which makes sense. I mean, it's just getting to the point where the easy fruit has been picked, and now they're getting to the tougher fruit. There's a little bit of information about the success of their program that Scott provided me. And they do really similar to the geothermal program, and the two sort of complement and co-promote each other. But their solar programs rely on a series of power hours, just like geothermal does, and in-person and virtual events. So after studying and talking and planning and coming up with a program in the spring of 2021, away we went with year one of Geothermal UC. And so Geothermal Urbana-Champaign was born. Here's a picture right out of the slide presentation. This is like one of the title slides at the beginning, the introduction. You'll see some of the organizations that have co-hosted. I'll get more into the co-hosting organizations. They're up in the logos are up in the upper right-hand corner. Those are just organizations who help promote and help co-host individual events. So here's a little bit about the cornerstone of the program. The power hour is really sort of the centerpiece, and it's what makes everything happen, and it's what the public sees. And what's a power hour? Well, power hour is basically a geothermal 101. It's done by me, and the program takes about an hour, and then plus some Q&A. Sometimes the question and answer period goes on and on and on, and usually it takes 15 or 20 minutes at the conclusion of the program. They can be done virtually or in person. Our best attended power hours have been virtual by far, but we've had some very successful in-person events. I would say that the majority of the in-person events that we've done with all three programs have been it tended to be underwhelming. with a few exceptions, the attendance just hasn't been that great. And I chalk that up to people just getting used to attending meetings virtually, and they like it because it's so easy to do. And the real key to success for these power hours, and if you don't think that you can do this, my advice to somebody who is thinking about starting a group buy program is, if you don't think that you have the network and the ability to get co-hosting organizations to help you make this be successful, you might want to rethink doing it, because it is the absolute key to success. So one of the co-hosting organizations in Geothermal UC was Common Ground, and this was just this summer, year 3, we did an in-person event there that was just representative of what a really solid in-person event looked like with this program. So you see, we were at the Common Ground grocery store co-op, which is like a Trader Joe's, only a little more hip maybe. And they have a small meeting room where they do environmentally conscious type events. And we had about 25 people there. And you see the gal who's right in front of me, sitting in front of me. She happens to be the mayor of Urbana, and her husband is right next to her. And they are looking to put a geothermal system in their own home, which I thought was pretty cool that she attended. And they actually had probably more questions than anyone else. You see the fellow with the necktie on in the picture on the right. That's Scott Tess from the city, who is making some introductory comments and then introducing me. And then I'm on the left, sort of lurking in the front of the picture. That was an event that we did there. Okay, before I show you a few slides out of the Power Hour deck at Geothermal UC, I want to talk a little bit about what that program over there looks like. That program is a single dealer program where contractors have the ability to bid against one another through a somewhat complicated bidding process. So they bid on price with a series of adders. We've tried to develop all the adders that could possibly come up with geothermal, exceptions to the norm, if you would. And then they bid on price and other attributes as well, but it's a little bit price-based. In year 1, we had 3 contractors who met the qualifications and competed against one another. One contractor, of course, was selected. Was a company by the name of Design Air in Decatur, Illinois. They're a big geothermal contractor, been doing geothermal for many years. They've installed over 2,000 systems since the mid to late 80s. And so they've been at this a while. And then in year 2 and year 3, they were the only contractor that proposed. And so they've been the contractor through 3 years of the program. I can answer questions later about how that single contractor program has gone there, but that Geothermal UC is a different program than the other 2 that we've subsequently started. Let me show you a few slides from the Geothermal UC program. So you're seeing the agenda slide at the beginning of the Power Hour. Just talks about basically what the program is going to look like. Then it gives some information. This is out of this year's slide deck about the program, some of the highlights. And then towards the end, I guess there's about 60 slides in the deck. We stay away from price until the end, and then we provide 2 slides that just show what the money might look like for your typical home project. That house on the right, by the way, is a professor over at the university. That's his house. It has geothermal in it. We show it, and also in the slide deck, a few other homes that have participated in the group buy program. But you see about what the money looks like. And so we took an average project in the program that's gone through the program, I think in group 2. And this is pretty representative of what the money looks like in projects the first few years of the program. This is what people tend to be doing. So we show a real easy retrofit, and then we show the deeper retrofit, which is what most people's projects look like with an average type residential project. And this gives them an idea. Of course, we emphasize that every home, every project is different, that they can't really go by this, but it gives them an idea and gets people thinking about what the dollars might look like for a project that they might do. So here's some results as we're wrapping up the third year of the program. This year, I would say, has been perhaps a little more successful in some ways than the first 2 years. However, our power hours probably haven't been as well attended as they were the first 2 years. Again, probably the same scenario as I mentioned earlier with the low-hanging fruit. We had lower hanging fruit the first 2 years, more fruit on the trees, if so to speak. So we worked a little harder to get attendance at our power hours this year, but we've hit our 75-ton of installed geothermal goal for this year. And one thing that we found is that we had a big backlog of what I would describe as tough projects, yards that were small, tree-filled, mature yards where we have difficulty getting a loop field in with conventional vertical drilling rigs. And that probably is going to be an opportunity in the years to come. And I'll mention more why, but we've got better loop installation assets available to us now with smaller drill rigs. And so we might be able to circle back and get some of those projects maybe in year 4 or year 5. So over the years, we've done over 50 power hours. Can't give you an exact number, but over 50. The record for geothermal UC, I think, was 77. That was a virtual event in year 1. Our best in-person event was about 25. That was the one that we did at the food co-op where you saw the picture. And I would say our average attendance at events has been in the 15 to 20 range. And we only held 2 in-person events this past 2023 year. One of them was not highly successful. I think maybe we did an evening event at the university, and we might have had 5 or 6 attendees, something like that. The other one was the evening event at the food co-op. That one was a great event, and just almost the right amount of attendees there at about 25, just kind of a perfect in-person event. So that's kind of an overview of what things have looked like. You're probably still wondering, well, how do the nuts and bolts work? Well, after the event is completed and we ask for we ask for pre-registration. So we've got contact information. Everybody who attends, whether it's in person or virtual, they get a follow-up email from the program the following day, and there's a link in there. And if they're interested in going the next step further after they've learned what they now know about geothermal, and they're interested in at least considering doing a geothermal project, they're asked to reply to that link, and then they become a prospect. Then they get a contact from the contractor and they start going through the process, which typically takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months to complete a project from start to finish in Urbana-Champaign. That's kind of how the program works. Again, it's a single contractor program, and it's different from the follow-up to programs, which we are in right now. So let me talk about the second one. And this is our second group buy program, and it's called Northwest Illinois Geothermal Power Up. And it's a completely different type of program than Geothermal UC. Does have one thing in common. It's a group buy program. We do real similar outreach in terms of the geothermal power hour, same general program, except this one has multiple contractors in it. So a little bit about Joe Carroll Energy. It's an electric and natural gas and propane contractor in northwestern Illinois. We serve about 20,000 members with electricity, also natural gas, internet services. I think you could characterize them as being a pretty forward-thinking, full-service cooperative. Um, some of you probably know John Scott. He's their member services expert at Joe Carroll. He's also on the board of GAOI, so he heard about Urbana-Champaign's program, and we talked about starting a similar program up in his neck of the woods, except there we would have to use multiple contractors because it's pretty widespread service territory that he has. And also, he has a pretty solid network of good contractors up there, and we wanted to take advantage of all of them. So here's a few slides from that program. This is sort of the title slide, if you would, the welcome slide at the beginning of the power hour for John's program. And then here's a slide that shows the participating contractors. You see all 5 of them, along with our logo, Joe Carroll's logo, the logo for the program, and then the 5 participating contractors. So the difference between Geothermal UC and Northwest Illinois is that Northwest Illinois has 5 participating contractors. These 5, there's just one contractor with set pricing in the Geothermal Urbana-Champaign program. Here we have 5. So we don't have set pricing in this program. The requirements for contractors is the same, and it's pretty high standard. I'll get into that later for the standard that contractors have to meet. It's a high standard to participate. If they don't meet that standard, they don't participate. But other than that, the 5 contractors all compete against each other through the proposal process for any consumers that are interested. So I would say if you want to characterize the difference between this program and the other one, this one's more of an outreach and an member education program for cooperative members, if you would, than the other one. The other one is just the single contractor program. We do a lot of the same things, but this one does not have set pricing. It's a competitive program. So again, the cornerstone is the same. The cornerstone of the program is the Power Hour program. Most of them are done virtually. It's a long travel from where I live in Springfield up to northwestern Illinois, 4 hours each way. But we have done a few in-person events. The in-person events that we've done have been, I would say, a little underwhelming. This is one we did this summer. It was Apple Canyon Lake is a recreational lake community, pretty mature, been there about 50 years. And they had their homeowners association annual meeting. And in the morning before the annual meeting, we did a geothermal workshop, and I think we had probably 10 or 12 people at the meeting. It wasn't well attended, not nearly as well as I would have preferred. But the folks that we did have at that meeting were all very solid prospects, and I would say most of them probably were going to do geothermal projects. So they were there for a reason. I would have preferred to have more than we had, but it is what it is. That's John Scott on the left in the orange shirt, and that's one of his co-op directors in the back who sort of introduced and emceed the meeting, if you would. So here's some results from that program so far. We've had kind of mixed results and a little bit of bad luck. We've had really good contractor participation with 5 contractors in the program. That's been good. We have, I think, overall, very good contractors. I would say all 5 of them are good geothermal contractors. In terms of the power hours, it's been kind of up and down. Some of them have been pretty decent. Some of them have had very light attendance. We had a bit of bad luck. We got several months into the program, and John had an accident, broke his wrists. And so we kind of had to slow down for a couple months and slow down and pretty much stop the program because we just weren't going anywhere. So we took a little hiatus and then have gotten going again as the years gone on. I'd say we've had a lack of really solid co-hosting organizations, and that's been a real weakness because we haven't had the attendance that we probably would like to have. And then another weakness has been we have a real shortage of loop installers in Northern Illinois and in this area. And so we've been working to encourage somebody else to get into that business, so to speak. And I think we're having at least a small amount of success there, and we'll find out. But it's the loop installers that do service that northwestern Illinois region aren't real close by, and they're shorthanded themselves and busy. So we've had a real shortage of loop installation, if you would. And then I would say a real strength is that we've got Joe Carroll as a hosting organization. So that's the solid positive that we have. And so I think we have to regroup with this program. We have to figure out how to get better co-hosting organizations to help us promote and move things along. And if we do that, I think we'll be okay. So then there's the third group buy, and this is the one that is really got the potential to be sort of a monster type program. And we're just at the end of year one, and we've had really interesting results. And so this one is Grow Geothermal Chicagoland. And we have 3 partnering organizations. It's probably a hybrid of the other 2 programs. It's a multiple contractor program because it has to be, because our service boundary is over 4 million people in Chicagoland, and there's no way this could be a single contractor program. And we've got 3 hosting organizations. So our hosting organizations are the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB. If you're not from Illinois, you're probably not familiar with CUB. It's a citizens group. It's been around about 20 years, and they're a kind of a watchdog type group, if you would, that exists to keep an eye on the utilities. I'm probably misrepresenting, but I have a long history with CUB. Usually from my utility days, a little bit more of an adversarial type relationship, if you would, where usually they weren't happy about one thing or another that the electric cooperatives were or weren't doing. So that's my history. And then on this program, they are just very pro green energy, energy efficiency, renewable energy. And so we're partners here. And this is really kind of CUB's baby. They're the ones who reached out to us with the idea. And then we've also partnered with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. It's a Wisconsin-based organization. We partnered with them in Urbana-Champaign in year one. They're really rock solid with the solar group buy programs, and they manage numerous solar group buy programs in multiple states, including Illinois. They managed the program in Urbana-Champaign, and we had year one of geothermal in Urbana-Champaign with them. And so I was already familiar with them. So we sort of have a 3-horned organization here with the 3 of us together. And we devised a program, if you would. And I would say the strength of our program is that we have the 3 really solid, committed organizations that pull together as a team to advance this program. And I'm interested to see what happens in 2024, because I think it's going to be a gangbusters year for us. But you see, we started in the spring, pretty much kicked this program off at our conference and started educating and signing up contractors for the program. And we began things on April 5th with our first power hour. So I'm going to show you a few slides, mostly from the meetings we had with contractors. That's our logo there. We have our own website. If you Google Grow Geothermal Chicagoland, you'll find our website. It's a pretty good website that shows the programs that we've done. Again, here's a little bit of an overview of the program. You can read that. These are the partners: MREA, CUB, Geothermal Alliance of Illinois. So you see it's completely different than the other two in that we've got sort of three organizations pulling together. This is a much different, much larger effort than Urbana-Champaign and Northwest Illinois. Those are relatively small. The corral, so to speak, the geographic corral is relatively limited. This one's really large. This one is monstrous, if you would. And so it really takes a bigger team. These are some slides right out of the program that I did for contractors, where we tried to educate contractors and convince those who were interested that they should participate with us in this program. And so I'm not going to read all these slides, but you can read them. And it just kind of gives an overview of what the program will look like. I will tell you, this is my opportunity to speak about what the contractor requirements are. So we have a fairly high standard for contractors to meet to participate in any of these programs. And any contractor that's going to participate or wants to participate in any of these programs has to hold the GAOI contractor service and installation credential. That's a fairly high standard. What does that mean? That means that 75%, minimum 75% of the technicians who turn wrenches on geothermal systems have to hold our certificates. And those certificates are not all that easy to attain. They're fairly rigorous, I think. And I think most people who have been through the program would tell you the same thing that I just said. And so 75%. So if a company A has 10 technicians that work on geothermal in their organization, they have to have 8 technicians hold our credential in order for them to participate. That gives them basically the company credential, a GAOI company credential. They do that, that allows them to participate in the program. So here's a bit more information. Again, this program is just wrapping up now. And here's a little bit of the highlights of our Chicagoland, our Grow Geothermal Chicagoland program. So you see that we've had the help, the assistance of co-hosting organizations that have included counties, municipalities, cities, townships, government, and then really committed not-for-profit organizations, some of them religious-based, some of them like Sierra Club, some of them local green environmental organizations, just a really wide variety. And some of them are incredibly strong organizations. Some of them faith-based groups. Some of our best power hours, we've had the co-hosting organizations like Faith in Place and church organizations that have really brought their people to the program, and they've been very successful. And then some of the nuts and bolts about the power hours. So you'll see on the slides there. Again, I'm not going to read all this. Again, a little bit more information about the power hours. These slides are right out of the slide deck that we used for the contractors. Again, a little overview of what the requirements were for the contractors. Some information about how they can go about becoming certified and eligible for the program. Again, these slides are all right out of that slide deck that we used during several meetings, some virtual, one in person at our conference. And there are more slides from that same slide deck. This seems like an eternity ago. And now here we are nearing the end of year one of the program. And then these are two pictures. You saw the one house here earlier. Both of these are Urbana homes from the Urbana program. But this again gives an overview of what the dollars might look like in Northern Illinois. We find pricing starts at about $12,000 a ton installed cost. That'd be a pretty competitive price, some higher than that. Looping has been much more expensive in Northern Illinois, as I found this year. And again, we record these, so they're available to people. They can see what the power hour looks like if they want to look at it first. Next steps, these are all right out of that same slide deck. Okay, some results from year one of Grow Geothermal Chicagoland. So an interesting year, sort of educational for me, eye-opening for me. We wound up holding 12 power hour events. There wasn't as many as we thought we'd hold. I'll tell you why in a minute. 10 were virtual events. 2 were either in person or hybrid type events. In other words, they were in person and online. We had over 700 registered to attend these power hours. 570 actually showed up and were either logged on for the virtual power hour or attended in person. Of those 570, 138 signed up to get an assessment from a contractor. So that was a pretty good result, give or take about 1 out of every 4 to 5 people actually went through the power hour and thought, I want to learn more about this, and they signed up to get a follow-up. What we found, this was interesting, is that we learned a number of things. But what we found was that the lead generation as we got into the program was too much for the contractors to handle. And we learned real early on in the program that people who were signing up for assessments weren't hearing back from contractors in the program. That was maybe a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. And so what we heard from the contractors is that maybe we should slow down and stop and let them catch up. So we stopped doing power hours for about 2 months to give them a breather. And then we found that they were catching up. And you have to remember that there was a learning curve here, not only for us, but for the participating contractors as well. They'd never had this type of lead generation where all of a sudden they have 15 leads emailed to them. And so it was a learning curve for everybody. And so what did we learn through participating in this program? Well, most importantly, these are the things I learned. We had even more of a shortage of loop installation in Chicagoland than I realized. I mean, we were just extremely short. No contractors could get a loop field put in. And some of the prices being charged for loop installation were just, in my view, pretty crazy high. They made the overall cost of projects pretty extreme, a lot higher than I expected. And so some of the proposals that were going out were really high price systems, and there's no way you could even work a payback on them. They're just sort of crazy. So we knew we had some work to do in terms of convincing more people to get into the loop installation business. What we also really learned is that utility incentives and utility promotions, good utility incentive programs and promotions really do work. ComEd in particular has a $1,500 per ton residential incentive for this year to a maximum of $9,000. That's a really solid incentive for a residential geothermal installation. You combine that with the 30%, and you have a really good story to tell from dollars and cents standpoint. So those programs really do work well. Maybe the most important thing of all is that fourth bullet point. And here, I just want to emphasize this is what we've learned through these programs, that group buy programs introduce geothermal to a whole new public for us. These are folks who, if I was going to lump them together, I would say have never had geothermal heat pumps technology on their radar before. They don't know much, if anything, about it. Many of them are very green-minded individuals. They want to do the right thing. They're concerned about the future of our planet. They are very interested. They've been either very interested in solar or they've already got solar on their homes. They want to reduce their carbon footprint. These are all folks who have a variety of reasons for wanting to learn more about geothermal, but they've just never been told much about it. Northern Illinois is a market that has never really had a lot of geothermal development in it, but the future is points ahead very, very nicely in Northern Illinois. And that environmental factor is really a powerful incentive for many people who want to do their part and be green. So that fourth and fifth bullet point there, those are the things, if you're going to characterize especially the Chicago program and Urbana-Champaign, those are the folks who really tend to participate in this program, and they were not your conventional, traditional geothermal person from the past, or at least not the type of conventional, traditional geothermal customer in the past that I've known from my history. Then that darker bullet point there toward the end is the co-hosting organizations making or breaking the programs. If you don't have that, your program will not be successful. Having done 3 of these now, I can say that's absolutely the truth. They make or break the success of this program. And just relying on old-fashioned communications by itself just will not cut it. And just putting things in the utility or the co-op newsletter and putting it on your Facebook page and hoping people will hear about it through word of mouth, that will work a little bit, but that really isn't going to give you the results that you want. But when you have a co-hosting organization that really promotes and really works this because they want to have the outreach be successful, that is powerful. And I'll just tell you a short little story about year 1 of Geothermal UC. I'm the day before, I guess, of the power hour. I'm getting ready for the following day's power hour, updating the slide deck. And I see emails popping up on my email, Facebook emails promoting the power hour event that I'm going to be doing. And all the outreach is coming from the co-hosting organization, and somehow it trickled down to me. And I thought, holy mackerel, this maybe really does work. That was like our second or third power hour. And I think that night we had 77 participants for Geothermal UC's program sponsored by Faith in Place, which is a faith-based organization in Eastern Illinois. And I thought, this really has the potential to work. And so if you have those strong co-hosting organizations, they will make these programs be successful. Without them, pretty tough. So as an overview, then we'll answer some questions. Results so far. Well, we've done 3 years of geothermal UC. This year, we've hit the 75-ton goal of installations. Almost all the installations over 3 years have been in the communities of Urbana and Champaign. It's a 3-county program over there, but one of the counties, maybe we've had 1 installation there. It's really the other 2 counties, and we've had a bit of more success in the more rural county that's adjacent to Champaign County, but nearly all the installations have been in town. They've been existing home retrofits done on older homes, pretty much in the university community, if you would. I would say a heavy dose of folks who work at the University of Illinois or are affiliated with organizations that are connected to the University of Illinois. And then this year, we've had a significant church installation that's going in right now as we speak. So we've hit the 75-ton goal. And so that program is chugging along and has been very, very successful. In the community of Monticello, which is nearby, it's in adjacent county. We've cultivated a really strong supporter of geothermal, a home builder, developer there in Monticello, who is now putting geothermal in his new home construction projects. That's pretty cool. So those two, there's some results from the geothermal UC program. Again, I want to emphasize that the folks who have put in geothermal, for the most part, have been very green-minded, forward-thinking individuals. Many of them already have solar in their homes. We have a backlog of older homes on tight lots, and we've had difficulty getting loop field in. But I think we'll be able to get some of them in year 4 of the program because we've now got some assets, some loop installation assets from some new loop installers that have come into the business this in the last 6 months with small drill rigs. And hopefully we'll get some more of those projects in year 4 of geothermal UC. Installation costs much higher in Northern Illinois than Central Illinois. Not double, but probably closer to double than similar to costs in Central Illinois. And so that's kind of made things go a little more slowly. There's what I would say at the beginning of this year, I would describe this as a severe lack of loop installation in Northern Illinois, especially in the Chicagoland area. Really just a small handful of loop contractors. And so the loop installation costs have been really, really high. And again, we've got 3 loop contractors that are already just getting started, that already have their rigs. They're, I would say, after the first of the year, going to be making a living installing loops in the Chicagoland region. And we've got a couple more that are working towards that. I would say 2 or 3 more folks, contractors, existing contractors that are looking to acquire drill rigs of sorts. And so the picture for 2024 should look significantly different than 2023. So those are all things that came as a result of these group buys. And so I think year 4 or year 2 for the Chicagoland program is going to really have a lot of upside, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that will go in the year ahead. That's pretty much what I have with the overview of the group buy programs. And so, Jeff, I've got time for question and answers. If there are some questions, I'd be glad to take a stab at it.
Hey, thanks so much, John. What a fascinating program. Hopefully this is something that may be able to be duplicated in other places. So very, very interesting. We do have questions. If you have any questions, please type those in the chat and I'll be happy to read those. Our first question is from Holly. She says that group buy implies bulk discounts. How does that part work?
We do have a discount program. I didn't want to get super into the weeds. I wanted to try to finish on time if I could. So we have goals. They're different for all three programs. Again, at Urbana-Champaign's program, I'll just talk about that one. We have three different levels, 25, 50, and 75 tons. When you hit the 75 tons, the rebate back to the consumer is $200 a ton. So if a consumer puts in a 4-ton system, at the end of the program, they're going to get an $800 rebate, so to speak, an $800 check back. That comes from the contractor. And so those folks will get that check directly from Design Air, which is the contractor of the program. Usually those get sent out about mid-January. So about the time the credit card bills post-Christmas holiday come due, they get that check from the program. That's how that one works. The other two are somewhat similar with a little bit of caveat differences because they're multi-dealer programs, but same concept.
Okay, great.
Before we get to the next question, Jeff, I should mention one thing that I didn't say in the program, but I probably should have. And GAOI board members probably get sick and tired of hearing me say this, but I'm not the type of individual who's afraid to try something new and fail. And this definitely was something new. And so my saying in life kind of is, if you want the same results, just keep doing the same old things that you've always done, and you'll get the same results. And that's sort of the theory that I followed in taking a stab at this program. I had no idea what I was getting into. But if you want the same old results, just keep doing things the same way. This is not the same way. Sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
That's great. We need Illinois to lead the way. That's a great thing, and GAOI has done a fantastic job of that. Next question is from Victor. Do you have any commercial building owner participants in the group buy program?
Commercial. This is a program that lends itself to small commercial. I don't believe we've had any of that. I don't think we've had any of that in Urbana-Champaign. We haven't had any small business. It's been all residential until this year. I could be wrong. I don't think so, though. And with the church project has been the first and only non-residential project there. We do have an opportunity, and I think I can mention this, with the Northwest Illinois program, a cooperative program. That's the Galena area, and those of you who have been to that part of our state know that it's a real pretty area that has a lot of tourism. It's kind of a weekend destination, cool place. And there's a project there that's being developed. It will be like second home type cottage communities with but very high end. And from all the discussions so far, the intention is to have that be an all electric, all geothermal development. And if that happens, that will be a big driver of that program. So that would be all residential, but it might be along the lines of what you're talking about there. And Chicagoland, I'm not aware of any commercial installations. So the program lends itself to that. I just don't think we've had any of that.
Okay, well, something to look forward to for sure. It is right at 11:30 Central. If you have time, John, we have more questions, so we're willing to take as much time as we need here. That's up to you.
I'm good.
Great. All right. So Victor has another question asking if you could highlight a few of the geo-related utility incentives, for example, from ComEd for commercial buildings.
Their commercial incentives are not as easy or as vibrant, and we've been working with them on that. They do not have a prescriptive incentive program. In other words, a set price, simple application, set price per ton. It's you have to follow more of a formula. It's difficult. It's not easy for the applicant, and the incentive tends to be much smaller, something more in the vicinity of the ones that I've seen, 175 to $200 a ton incentive. I can't tell you the logic of all that. I'm not being critical. I'm just can't tell you the logic of that. It's just a different program on the commercial side. I wish that it would be different. Hopefully we're making some progress on that front. With Ameren, they have a $500 commercial geothermal incentive, $500 per ton to a maximum incentive of $25,000. They've been just the opposite of ComEd, if you would. They haven't had a residential incentive, but they are going to have, I understand, a new program. I've been working with them for about 6 months now. They are going to announce, probably shouldn't say too much about it, but they're going to have a program the first of the year, I'm told, residential program. And I don't know the details and probably couldn't speak to that as to the dollar amount if I did know. But I'm hopeful that that will be a nice program that's supposed to start the first of the year. The electric co-ops have programs that look different. They're a little bit all over the place. We have one co-op that has a loop lease program in addition to nice rebate incentive programs. Joe Carroll has very solid incentives in place for commercial and residential geothermal. So they're all different.
Well, helps this collaborative effort. It sounds like at least we're getting the word out, so that's excellent. Here's another question from Bill, and you have a lot of accolades here, a lot of clapping hands and thanks and all this kind of thing. So it looks like this was a great presentation. Bill also comments, great job. He asks the question, has Illinois been, or excuse me, has GAOI been active in bringing in the 3 new loop installers, or is it just a result of them hearing about market demand? In Buffalo, New York, we have a heating oil company getting into geo, and they've got their customer base to attract to their equivalent of an owner hour, which is working well.
I would say a little bit of both. So I can't take credit for these folks getting into the business. I will say that a couple of the fellows who are getting into the business in the Chicagoland region have gone out and made investments, significant investments in small drill rigs. And they were just folks who came to me, and I was glad they did, and I've helped them a lot. And I think I have, and they are now certified, credentialed members of GAOI, and I think after the first of the year are going to be pretty solid participants in the geothermal industry in Northern Illinois. In addition to that, I've gone out with board members and others and gone out and talked to contractors and urged them to get into the business, and we've had a bit of success and traction with trying to look for contractors that ought to get into the loop business. And we've had a bit of success on a couple of other fronts. So a little bit of each, where it's just kind of dumb luck, and we stumbled into people who got word of what the price per ton was for installed loop fields in Northern Illinois. And I can tell you some of the prices being quoted are pretty high, about the same as what total installation costs used to be in not that long ago in Central Illinois. That's how some of the crazy pricing has been. And so hopefully that's going to level off a bit, and that'll work in our favor in 2024.
Yeah, well, it sounds like as we have more awareness, that certainly could help. Lorraine has a good question. Why is there such a shortage of drillers in the Northwest? Could a government-funded program that supported the industry, for example, training and loans for equipment, transform the success of geo in that and other areas?
Sure. Yes. Why does such a shortage exist? That's a good question.
She's specifically talking about the Northwest.
Yeah. don't really know the answer to that. Historically, there's been a relatively limited amount of geothermal done in that part of the state. And we've had one contractor, really great contractor from Iowa, Loop contractor. I think he's on the program here today as a listening in, who has taken care of the loop installations for a number of the contractors in that neck of the woods. But 2022 and 2023, I find, and especially the farther I go north in Illinois, we've just had more work than there's been loop installation assets. And so it's just difficult for a single loop installer to take care of that business when they're not real close to it. There have been some well drillers up in that part of the world that have led it around with installing loops, and I probably shouldn't comment too much about that. I will just say at least a couple of them that I know, I probably wouldn't have them put my loop field in. And so I don't know. That's been an area that we've worked really hard to encourage a contractor to get into the business and try to convince them that there's good potential there. So the looping assets that have existed up in that neck of the woods have tended to come from Iowa and Wisconsin. And there are 3 or 4 bigger union loop installers in central Illinois and west central Illinois that get up and do work up in that area, but they tend to not be doing residential work. They do commercial work and do it very, very well, and have been doing it for a long time, but they don't tend to want to go north that far for single residential projects, which is understandable. It's a long ways to go. So I think that is working itself out for 2024, and that's kind of exciting.
Okay, excellent. We are 10 minutes past. Do you still have time, John? We still have questions.
I'll be here till the cows come home.
All right, love this stuff. So just want to make sure I'm respectful of time. Victor has a question about the typical bore depth in the residential market with the standard large drill rig and new smaller drill rigs you mentioned. Can you comment on the typical bore depth with the different technologies?
Sure. So the guys that are using the smaller drill rigs tend to be drilling shallower loop fields. I hear of 90-foot bore holes, 120-foot bore holes, bore depths. All depends on the geology. It's tougher drilling in northern Illinois. It just is. Central Illinois is so easy because it's all clay. It's like drilling butter here. But you get up in northern Illinois and the geology changes all across, especially across the entire state in northern Illinois. But in the Chicagoland region, you go from community to community, and the geology really changes very, very quickly there. And so it's just tougher drilling. And so the drillers that are active up there, they usually know what they're going to find. At least they have an idea. They know some areas that they know they're going to have trouble, and they try to stay away. So I would say in general, 200 footers or less, usually for residential work, as a with a conventional drill rig or a directional boring rig. 200 footers. With the smaller rigs, I hear of 90, 100 footers is fairly common. Again, the geology is all over the place. And I didn't realize that 5 years ago, but I've learned as time has gone on just how challenging it can be to drill in northern Illinois.
Sounds like it. Well, I guess they're just using multiple shallower bores, so it makes a lot of sense. Carl, Chris, and Larry have similar comments and questions related to less costly installations here. Chris says that they've done a lot of horizontal loops in Illinois, and Carl talks about overburden and different approaches there with efficient earth coupling methods. Larry talks about workforce availability. Can you comment a little bit on other loop types like horizontal and why those aren't being installed in areas where that's possible?
I think they are, but
okay.
You're not going to see too many horizontal loop fields in the Chicagoland region. I mean, there might be a rare person out in the far out suburbs that's got a big enough yard for that. But I have to admit, I don't know. I don't think I've talked to a single individual this year that's been affiliated with Geo Chicagoland. That's where we've talked about a horizontal loop field. I mean, it just isn't going to happen in that part of the country. So, but there are a good number of horizontal loop fields in Illinois. When you get in that, I would say that's more the conventional, traditional installation historically that I've known. Again, I worked with the electric cooperatives for 33 years. And, so I'm very familiar with horizontal loop fields. They work very well in Illinois. You just aren't going to have that in the Chicagoland region. Very often, once in a blue moon.
So we've got lots of opportunity to grow and have all kinds of different methods to do that. That's all the questions I see, John. Great presentation.
I don't mean to interrupt. It looks like you unmuted my mic, and I do have a question. If it's okay for me to ask, my chat somehow is disabled and I can't type it in. Is that all right?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jackie. I didn't realize you couldn't chat. Go right ahead.
Go for it, Jackie.
You've been mentioning smaller drill rigs, and I was just curious. I know that there's a one-man operable drilling rig that's about 8 feet high by a company in the Chicago region, and I'm not sure if that's what you're referencing, or if by smaller rig you're still talking about, the very large multiple use drill rigs. Do you have any? Are you aware of the smaller rig, and have you seen it being used? I know about it, but I don't live near Chicago, so just wondered if you had some more comments on that.
Sure. I'm very familiar with it. I've been out in the field and seen that equipment. That fellow, I don't know if we should mention his name, but his name's Scott. In addition to running his own geothermal installation company, by the way, his company was a participant in Grow Geothermal Chicagoland this year. He also builds equipment for others. So one of the new contractors has his drill rig, and that, to the best of my knowledge, just got it a few weeks ago. So he's going to be in business after the first of the year. So he has a couple of small drill rigs. One of them happens to be the one that you're referencing. The other fellow, his equipment is not that equipment. It's the same size, though. I believe that rig was built. It's like a Bobcat type mount. I understand. I have not seen it in operation. I think it's built in Texas, if memory serves me. And he just taken receipt of that equipment here within the last 6 weeks, I think. Those are the two small rig contractors that are going to be in the business next year. Does that help?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you very much.
All right. What a great presentation, and thank you so much for the questions. Unfortunately, this is our last one for the year. Can't believe how time flies, but we'll be starting up again in 2024. And if you're interested in speaking or advertising, let us know. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, especially John, and have a great rest of the week. Take care, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.